What's up, Dune Spice Warriors? It's FitzBro, and I have a ton of tips for you on how to maximize your spice production in Dune Spice Wars, which is going to make you win the game. More spice, you're going to have more Solari, more hegemony, more everything, more military, so you're going to be in a great spot in taking on the insane AI. So let's get into it. The very first tip I have for you is around microing your harvester. Now, the Fremen don't really have to do this, but for all of the other factions, you have the option to either turn on this auto recall or not. Now, turning the auto recall on will make sure that you don't lose your harvesters to the sandworm that's going to attack. But what you're going to see here, if you hover over down here, you have minus 5% spice production. So that is a risk you're going to have to take. So it's up to you. It depends how fast you are. If you're really quick with hitting the pause button anytime you see a sandworm detected, this might not be a big issue for you. But if you're one who just wants to park your harvesters and don't want to worry about this this minute degree of micro, that is on you. But it does cost 5%. You can see if I turn it off, that goes away. So it's up to you if you turn that auto recall on. So that's tip number one. Another thing, you're building spice refineries in these districts that have spice, right? Well, there's a few building options you're going to have here that could improve your gathering. So let's check this out here. So the spice refineries, the first thing we get, it costs 425 plasticrete. Obviously, in the early game, you're going to prioritize taking the spice as soon as possible in these districts, and also make sure you have the necessary plasticrete to immediately drop down those refineries. If you're coming from other RTS games, it's kind of like building your villagers or your drones or whatever you think about it. This is your main resource for the game. You need to get this online as soon as possible. And once you have your harvester, you're going to start out with one slot. You see I have additional. We will get into that soon. And you can add additional crew to your harvester, and that's going to give you more spice. So what I'd recommend early on is don't overdo it on your military at the very start of the game. You only need like 1 or 2 troops because you need to have that manpower to maximize the harvesters inside of these I guess the crew inside of these harvesters, which are going to cost 50 manpower apiece. Okay, so that's a tip there for your harvester and your refinery. Now let's talk about the spice silo. Now this is a building that's unlocked. I'm going to go through a bunch of techs that are going to help you with your spice output, but I've already unlocked this. The spice silo is going to increase your spice production by 20% in the ally villages in the region and in its neighbor. So what does that mean? Well, you don't necessarily have to build the spice silo in this region. I could place it in an adjacent region. So here, ideally, I should take this town. You see, I have spice here and I have spice here. And if I were to take this village and build a spice silo, it would give a 20% boost to both of these regions. And then I don't have to build 2 spice silos. So that's a good way you can maximize the profit you're going to get from that plus 20%. Of course, you can also consider maintenance centers in the same way, right? You can build them kind of in the in-between districts. So look for opportunities to do this in the early game as you're planning your expansion. If you got 2 spice regions close by and maybe just 1 tile of difference, it might be worth capturing that middle tile in order to get some of these boosts to your buildings and your output. Okay, so those are the basic things for spice. Let's get into the research because there are a bunch of techs, and part of why I started this video is I wanted to know what were all the techs, what are going to be the best options for you, and I'm going to lay them all out here for you. I'm going to highlight the techs that are available and what they do, and then it's going to also be up to you to decide the order you're going to need. Obviously, you can't just power out the max harvesters right out of the gate because you might not have the manpower to upkeep it, but just know that this exists as if this is your goal to have more spice. The more spice you're going to have, the more Solari you're going to have, the more military you're going to win the game. Okay, so let's start up here. This is going to be somewhat related to getting your spice. You want to work towards Paracompass and then spectral imaging. Now, this is a very strong tech that I recently learned about because spectral imaging is going to make it so your harvester supported by an ornithopter gain plus a 20% gather rate. Okay, so that is a huge plus 20% gather rate there for your ornithopters. The text on the way there, by the way, is Paracompass is going to make it so your ornithopters are faster, your militaries have less supply drain, and then also this is going to reveal all of the hidden points of interest across the map. So you can pick up some cool extra missions. It's going to help you out, or rather, points of interest is going to give you some additional resources. But let's take a closer look. Here's our ornithopter. You can see what I did is I put him, I turned off auto recon and I just right click on the harvester. And once he gets there, you can see plus 20% gathering rate for this harvester. So that is a massive bonus. So mid to late game, because of course early on, you're probably gonna have these ornithopters out on the map. You might not be able to go straight for that tech, but maybe you wanna go for it right away. But it is going to tie up this ornithopter essentially for the rest of the game, right? Because I'm gonna leave him on this harvester because I'm always gonna want some spice. So use that tech, again, that is spectral imaging, and then you right click your ornithopter onto your harvester. Okay, we talked about maximizing the crew on your harvesters. Let's look about how you can unlock that. Okay, so down here we have modular parts will give you +1 crew in the harvesters. So once you get this, you can pay 50 manpower, add additional crew. You're going to get different, more spice. It's also going to unlock Harvester Works, which we'll get to here in a minute. The next one, Grid Explain, is going to give you another +1 crew, and this is what actually unlocks that spice silo I was telling you about earlier. So you can't build this spice silo right away, but you could prioritize this tech pretty early on and have these spice silos by about the time, you know, you have hopefully two regions maybe generating spice. And then lastly, you have crew training program. So this is going to give +1 crew yet again, and you're going to get hegemony production from your spice tax paid. So essentially, this is your row. If you want to add more crew, which is going to equal, you know, more spice, think of that like your more villagers or whatever, whenever other games you've played. This is how you get more crew in there. There's also economic lobbying. So let's talk a little bit about the trading system. So with economic lobbying, if you get this tech, you get a +10% CHOAM spice exchange rate per agent assigned to the CHOAM infiltration. So that is where you can put your agents, right? You can assign them to the CHOAM infiltration, which is right in here, right? And this will make it so that if you have that tech, your exchange rate is going to be better. And we'll talk a little bit about that exchange rate just next. And it's going to unlock the CHOAM branch. So we're going to talk about those special districts. This is what unlocks that. So in a nutshell, these techs and then these techs are going to be your best friends for your spice output. Of course, all of these have an effect, right? If you've got additional of extra resource, maybe you don't have to trade as much of your spice, etc. But those are the key ones I wanted to point out in here. Now, let's talk up here about the exchange rate. So, you know you can move this slider. If it's down here, you're going to get more gold. You're selling your spice for gold. Or if you're doing this, you're stocking up your spice, right? So you're selling less of it, maybe a little bit less gold income. If you open this spice report, or you can read it here. You don't actually even have to open this. It will tell you for 1 spice, I'm going to receive 2.4 Solari. So my kind of method has been lately, if this is below a 1 spice to 2 Solari exchange rate, I will typically stock my spice, okay? And I might not do it all the way. Maybe I need a little bit of Solari, because let's be honest, we might not have a huge stockpile, especially in the early game. But what I will try to do is stock my spice when this exchange falls below 2. You know, maybe if you're really desperate, you could sell it at like 1.5 or whatever. But some months you'll get this exchange of 2. Look at this month, 2.4. This is a great way to exchange the spice, and you're going to have a ton of gold coming in. So this is a good way to maximize the spice and Solari stockpile, is pay attention to that. You only have to look at it once a month, but decide, am I going to save this month or am I going to exchange? And of course, you'll have to move with that on the fly. But with that, we just mentioned there are techs and improvements which are going to improve this exchange rate. So right there, plus 10% spice exchange rate. And let's show you a few other ones. So let's get into the special districts here at our main base. So you can see here, I can click on here and I can add economic, military, statecraft. But the ones I want to point out to you, we have the CHOAM branch. And if you get this branch, it's going to give you a plus 30% CHOAM spice exchange rate. So better exchange rates mean you're going to have more CHOAM in the bank. You're going to have more Solari in the bank. So this is a direct, it's going to help you get more spice, essentially, in the long run and when it comes to exchanging. And then there's also Harvester Works. This is going to be directly harvesting that, right? We talked about all those techs that unlock additional harvester, and then, of course, the Harvester Works. This tech is going to make it so that you have plus 5% harvester gathering rate per economic building in the village. Okay, so if you have 5 economic buildings in a village, it's going to give you that boost. It also makes your harvesters respawn faster. So if you're someone who likes to micro those harvesters from those sandworms, this is going to help you with getting them back quicker. And then each crew grants increased defense, which I guess just makes them hardier against attacks. I haven't really experimented a ton with that, but that is just something to understand. So there's one more thing we're going to take a look at here, and then I'll do a quick recap for you. The Landsraad Standing. Now, of course, for the smugglers and then the Fremen particularly, this is not going to be as beneficial for you, but you could see, actually, I've got a medium Landsraad Standing right now. I had a high one before as I was like getting some of these techs. If you have a higher Landsraad Standing, it's going to give you a plus 10, or rather, particularly in the high, I'm in medium right now, it'll give you plus 10 spice exchange rate. So a higher Landsraad Standing is a good way to increase this exchange rate over here. To recap everything we just went through, there's essentially, you've got your harvester. You can improve how many crew you can put inside your harvesters, which is going to give you some more spice. You can get the tech to make it so the ornithopters can help them with their harvesting, which will give you plus 20% gathering rate. You can decide whether you want to micro or not the auto recall on that harvester. You won't have to do that with the Fremen, of course. And then you have your tech tree. You can decide, which direction you want to get. Do you want to get more harvesters early on? Do you want to go for that ornithopter benefiting? That's up to you. Of course, there's other things to decide there. And then you have your exchange rates. There's things that are going to impact. Do you get more Solari per exchange rate? And then, once a month, am I making those exchanges? Am I saving it? How am I microing this? And then making sure in those neighboring districts, build those spice silos. So this is a great place. Build a spice silo. It's going to benefit both of these areas. And those are a bunch of ways I have been able to absolutely maximize my spice income, which in turn has given me more Solari, and I've been having a lot more success in my game. So plan out those techs early on. Make sure you're always prioritizing your spice production. It is Dune Spice Wars, and you're going to be in a great place and be set up for success. Please let me know down in the comments below if any of these tips helped you out or were new to you. And as always, if there is something that I didn't mention that you think would be a great tip, you can leave that as well. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more Dune content, tips and tricks. There we go. There's a tongue twister. And for more great tongue twisters like that, follow me on twitch.tv/FitzBro. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.